Now, I've been fat, I've been shredded, I've been skinny, and I've been jacked. I've lost 25 kilograms of fat, and I've gained 25 kilograms of muscle. Now, my powerlifting total is around about 600 kilograms, and you can ask my rolling partners in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I am very strong. Now, I have tried all the diets. I've tried the strongman bulking diet, I've tried low carb, I've tried high fat, I've tried carnivore, I've tried if it fits your macros, I've tried paleo diet, I've tried low fermentation diet, I've tried low FODMAP diet. I've even tried just eating mince, salt, and honey, and that's it, right? I have tried it all. Make no mistake, I've autistically researched every nutritional nook and cranny there is, right? For years on end, and I wanted to put all of my information, all this knowledge into one digestible podcast for you, right? And that is what this is. Make no mistake, if you listen to this podcast and diligently pay attention and take action from it, then you will save years of your life. That is a big claim, and trust me, I will back it up. Because even despite of the physiological prowess I have attained, I've actually had chronic gut issues for years. So I've had to use every nutritional lever I possibly can to leverage the most out of my physique, my energy levels, and so on and so forth. So make no mistake, this next hour or so will be the best free resource on nutrition on the internet. So fucking buckle up, gentlemen. But first, as always, before we get into the meat and potatoes, no pun intended, we like to have a little format where I just update you on my personal life through the form SSS. So sun, spring, and also soil. So sun, in terms of my purpose and my mission, it's going decently well. I've started this full-time job. It's demanding, but I'm on that. I'm getting up early. I have slacked a little bit on the podcast, but we're getting back on it, boys. It's just about system or optimization at this point. Finding out where can I get the most time, where am I wasting time, how to be more productive, and just getting work done when I can. Because last weekend I slacked out. I went out. It was Valentine's Day, and went out with a couple of Johns, and you know what the business is, unfortunately. And that means I didn't get much work done. So pretty easy fix there. But yeah, that's just generally how work's going. And spring, obviously, I've been doing well on the female front. I've been probably about 3 or 4 dates this past week or so, which is good, but it's almost too well because it's taken away from my work. So, yeah, I mean, met a couple of nice girls. No one that like kind of like blows my mind, to be honest, and quite a few that didn't. But it is what it is, you know what I mean? So yeah, and to be honest, I'm still kind of struggling with the ethical side of how to navigate it, say as a man who like follows Christ, how to sexually conduct myself. I still don't quite know. There's like, do I just completely abstain from everything, or is there nuance to it, or do I not abstain at all? It's quite a difficult one, and it's just something I'm kind of battling at the minute and trying to find the truth of. And soil, I'm about to start a new gut health protocol as well, which is basically just optimizing bile. Not going to bore you with the details. And in terms of training, yeah, going pretty well. I've had to cut down my training a little bit just so I can have more time to do this. You know, that is discipline when you've literally got to cut like training and exercise to actually do more work. It's a good little feeling, to be honest. And jiu-jitsu is going very well as well. Striking's going decently as well. I'm pretty happy with it. But yeah, boys, feel free to comment yourself what your spring, sun, and soil is in the comment section below, and I'll see all of them. So back to nutrition, right? What you have to understand is men have thousands of desires, right? But the sick man only has one. Can you guess what that is? Because you have to understand, you can have billions of dollars, you can have empires, you can have armies at your very whim. If you do not have your health, you have nothing. And you, in a heartbeat, would sacrifice all of that to regain your health. What you have to understand is that health is the foundation of the foundation. Without it, you are not building anything. Sorry, boys, I had to strategically relight the candle we ran out. Anyway, your diet is one of the most important contributors of this health. And the status of your diet is going to reflect deeply within your health. I say potentially the only thing that is more important is sleep. And if you want to be funny, then you can say, like, I don't know, water or air, but like, come on. It is undeniably vital. Honestly, in the modern world, you have two options. You can either wait for chronic illness to plague you, and then that engenders your change, or you change before, and save yourself decades of pain. I mean, there's a pretty smart choice there, and good thing is you're in the right place. And what you have to appreciate is by choosing to optimize your diet, you are literally choosing to buff yourself mentally, physically, spiritually, in literally every facet there is. Alternatively, if you choose to ignore this and just eat what you want and eat loads of shit, you are nerfing yourself in every single facet, mentally, physically, and spiritually. Diet is hugely important, gentlemen, because they want you overweight. They want you obese. They want you anxious. They want you depressed. They want you lethargic and slow and cumbersome. But gentlemen, you have the choice to circumvent that inevitability. So here's the thing. They feed you poison so that you can feed the fattened profit monster that we call healthcare. You see, the fat slave with crippling brain fog never even thinks to rebel, let alone actually rebels. And if you just keep him fattened and entertained, he scarcely even notices the chains imprisoning him, bred in circuses thousands of years later. Unbeknownst to many, World War III has actually already begun. But people aren't throwing bombs or shooting bullets. They're posting articles. They're tweeting. They're writing. They're speaking. Because understand, we are in the midst of an informational war. And gentlemen, you are in the right place. Now, we may be a small resistance, but we're a knightly noble one. Because there is many battles in this informational war. And one of them is the diet and nutrition space. Now, if you've even gandered upon this space, you know it is a mess. You know, there's no clear-cut sides, everyone's shooting everyone, everyone's shouting and see who can speak the loudest. But fundamentally, why is this? How does this make sense? Now, of course, as we've discussed before, there is such a thing as a mirror world. This world is full of vast, unlimited quantities of information. So if that was to be revealed to us at once, we'd simply go insane, right? We simply could not handle it. So what happens is we actually have quite a narrow aperture of focus, right? And within this narrow aperture of focus, ourselves is reflected back onto us. Our very being is reflected back onto us. So if you try to convince yourself that something's true, that very thing will be reflected straight back to you. And your biases will be proved. Like, I used to think carnivore was the way, that fiber was terrible for you and you should just eat loads of fat and eat loads of meat. Vegetables were terrible for you. And guess what happened? I tried carnivore, I looked into this thing, and I had my own biases reflected back to me until I managed to overcome the dogmatic principles of carnivore or any of the other diets, right? Because fundamentally, you have to appreciate that there is no such thing as one truth. There's no such thing as one diet. There's no such thing as one supplement or, one routine, whatever it is that fits all. Now, why is this? Because you have to understand is that on a genetic level, we are all vastly different. We are all very biodiverse. Now, if you take someone who anthropologically comes from a mountainous region, right, they're going to be eating very different foods anthropologically than someone who's living in the African savannah, right? So obviously, hundreds of years later, we tell ourselves we're distant from our lineage, but that is not the case at all. You are very much interconnected to your lineage, and you can see this reflected dramatically in the natural world. Like, for example, you have bears, right? But then you have bears that have evolved in the Antarctic, the freeze, and what do they eat? They are hypercarnivorous polar bears. They'll literally eat just meat, whereas you have bears that have evolved in Japanese forests or Chinese forests, and what do they eat? Just bamboo, because that's what's available to them. They're 100% vegetarian. To be honest, pandas are a bit retarded. I don't know how they're still alive. Like, evolutionary, it doesn't make sense. But here they are. You know what I mean? So that's the thing. Depending on where your ancestors lived and what food was available to them at the time, you develop your digestive tract develops to digest what they're eating. But obviously now in the modern day, with abundance in many different foods, I've got bananas on the shelf there from across the world that have traveled further than I ever have in this world. It's a different ball game, and we become disconnected from what we used to eat. So with that in mind, there's going to be people who are going to thrive on more of a carnivorous diet. Right, so if you take like an Inuit, for example, they eat very high amounts of meat, and they're adapted for that, right? And then alternatively, there's going to be people who don't do too well with meat and might digest better, grains and veg and legumes and so on. right? So there is not one clear-cut, cookie-cutter approach that just works for everyone. So fundamentally, my message is going to be, I'm going to give you my opinion, so don't get it twisted. My message is going to be, do what works for you. Because we're all going to have different macronutrient demands. Some people are going to want more carbs. Some people are going to want more fat. Some people are going to want more B12. Some people are going to want more magnesium, right? It just depends on your individual needs, okay? We all have very, very different vessels, and different fuel is required to optimize the efficiency of each of those different vessels, right? So this is an important step, okay? The best diet is the one you actually stick to, right? And if you can stick to it, that means it's satiating you. You're not depriving yourself. You're enjoying your food. You feel good, you look good, and everything just seems to be working, right? That is an ideal case scenario. But you have to figure out what that is for yourself. You have to play archaeologist with your past. Think anthropologically, what would my ancestors have eaten? Or if you even want an easier step than that, just think, my relatives I'd say about World War II or World War One, what did they eat before that? In the early 1900s or before that, before the satanic inversion that we call food, of ultra processed food, came and flooded our shelves. What did your grandparents eat? Because the chances are it's going to be local, seasonal, and aligned with you and what your body has adapted to eat for thousands of years. So that's it. Play archaeologist with your past. And also, I've made this mistake many times, avoid dogmatic opinions. If there is one group of people saying, we have the truth and this is the whole truth and that's it, they do not have the whole truth. I assure you that. They have simply had their biases reflected back upon them and confirmed and reinforced, right? And they've fallen for the illusion that is their own reflection and called it the truth. So do not just believe, that's not saying they don't have any good information. Many of them do. Don't just consider one ideology the complete truth, right? Take bits and pieces from all of them. Right, I'm someone who, like I said, I eat carnivore, I love meat, but I believe there is wisdom in veganism and vegetarianism, as I'll get into, right? You never want to be closed-minded with this. And this is a rule that doesn't just, isn't just about diet. I mean, you can apply this for any single field, right? Any single battle which is being conducted in the midst of this informational war, you can apply this same logic to, and it works flawlessly. So how is this podcast going to work? Right, so first and foremost, what we're going to do is break down all the food groups one by one, and I'll give you my opinion on them, okay? And then we're going to address a few key topics. And then I'm going to divulge a system in which you can actually implement this, because I could speak for hours and hours of the complete truth of nutrition, and you could be blessed, and you could be like, yeah, and then what happens after the podcast? You do nothing. What's the point, right? The most important part of this podcast is what comes after. Do you take action? So the last part of this podcast will be a system which you can implement to actually ascertain some results and make some changes, which is the most important part. Then we'll finish with a prayer as always. But I would like to reiterate, gentlemen, is that with anything anyone says, and this isn't just applied to me, like I said, this applies to every battlefield of the informational war, but all of this is food for thought. But that does not mean that you have to eat. Okay? I'm going to repeat that. All information is food for thought, but that does not mean that you have to eat. So, gentlemen, let's actually get into this podcast then. So, calories, right? Obviously, you have some people saying calories are everything, it's just calories in, calories out. Then you have some people saying, oh, you don't need calories, it doesn't matter about that. Truth lies in the middle with most things. So, it is true. Your body needs a certain amount of calories each day. And if you give your body more calories than it needs per day, it will store this as fat. But if you give your body less calories than it needs per day, then it will actually draw stored energy from your fat reserves and burn fat in order to make up for that deficit. So there's the three main macronutrients. So you have fat, which is around 9 calories per gram. You have protein, which is around 4 calories per gram. And you have carbohydrates, which are around 4 calories per gram. So you might think, oh, simple then. So if I want to eat less calories and lose weight, then therefore cut the fat because that's the high calorie bit. But that is a foolish approach. First and foremost, you kind of have to stop looking through this paradigm of like, oh, less calories is better, right? It is simply not true. It is not true. Fundamentally, most people operate in a broken system, right? That is the problem. It isn't the calories, the caloric expenditure. There is a great deal of nuance to it. Allow me to cook, gentlemen. So First and foremost, like I said, let's address the fat points. You're saying we can just cut out the fat, and then we can say we'll just have the protein and carbs, and that'll be lower fat, and then therefore that'll be like hugely lower calorie. But it doesn't quite work like that. It isn't just as simple as calories in, calories out, because there is such a thing as a metabolism. For example, some farmers, they actually tried fattening up some livestock. So what do they think? That they thought along the same vein of that logic. They thought fat is 9 calories per gram. So let me just get loads of coconut oil and just put it in the feed of the livestock, and they will get super fat, right? So what do? They pick coconut oil, which is a saturated fat, and like I said, they fed it to livestock. And their caloric expenditure, their caloric intake rather, increased tremendously. But what happened to their physiology? They actually got jacked and shredded, right? They actually lost a bunch of weight. I'm not sure if they got jacked, but they lost a bunch of weight despite this increased caloric intake. That doesn't make sense because it's just calories in, calories out, right? Because fundamentally there is such a thing as a metabolism, and there is pro-metabolic foods, which means they increase your metabolism, right? And there is anti-metabolic foods. These means they decrease your metabolism. So, for example, obviously we say protein is 4 calories per gram, right? But did you know if you were trapped in some Siberian forest and all you had to eat, right, was very, very lean rabbit, right? You think, oh, right, it'll be a rough winter, but I'd survive. No, you'd actually starve to death. I know it sounds crazy, but you have food. No, because food takes calories to break down. And lean muscle meat is very calorically expensive to break down. It's difficult to break down, so the body has to invest a lot of energy to actually break it down. And this is called the thermic effect. So your body would actually expend more calories breaking it down than it actually extracts from the meat itself. So therefore you'd starve, which I find quite fascinating. So you're clearly starting to see there is a lot more nuance to it than calories in, calories out. So generally, pro-metabolic foods are going to be fruits, they're going to be whole foods, they're going to be meats, they're going to be saturated fats. And these sorts of foods, which is essentially just your whole natural foods, are very, very pro-metabolic. If you were to eat 3,000 calories of just this whole food versus 3,000 calories of ultra processed garbage, by the end of like say, a few months, one person would be a healthy weight, they might have even lost weight, the other person would be a skinny fat mess. Because anti-metabolic foods are foods like your polyunsaturated fatty acids, which are PUFAs, which are basically seed oils, your processed vegetable oils, you know, the cheap oil you see on the shelves and see that it's almost in every processed food. That's actually metabolically destructive. And also things like vegan substitutes, they're also very bad for your metabolism. And generally, very ultra-processed food is bad for your metabolism. So you already see there's a lot more nuance to it than just calories in, calories out. And of course, I'd be a fool not to mention that exercise is the most pro-metabolic thing as well. You want to be as active as possible. But that's for another podcast. There's a nightly training manual coming soon. Don't worry about that. And there's actually another angle from this calories in, calories out scenario, because there's also satiety. Because certain foods will fill you up more, certain foods won't fill you up more. For example, the most satiating foods are lean protein and potatoes. And general whole foods are all pretty satiating, but those two I'd say are the most satiating. But then you have food like ultra processed food, which is designed to bypass this satiety. It has very high calorie per 100 grams. It has like the perfect carb to fat ratio. It has the perfect crunch. It has all these artificial flavors to like stimulate dopamine. And it's effortless to chew, so you can just eat vast amounts of it. And all of these sadistically combine to mean it doesn't actually fill you up much. And also you just want to eat loads of it, and it's very, very easy to overeat. Because what you have to understand is that you're not just against some processed food. You're against the billion-dollar industry that's behind that processed food, and teams of psychologists who have studied all their life and input all of their knowledge into maliciously perfecting this processed food just so it can psychologically trick you into eating it and ingesting it. It's not an easy battle, right? It is not an easy battle. So with this in mind, you can kind of see why obesity is prevalent. You have foods like processed foods with seed oils in. So they're not only anti-metabolic, so they increase the amount of calories that you'll need per day to maintain your weight and make you more likely to store fat. But they also fill you up less. So you have this sadistic double-pronged attack. And you can actually see why people who with obesity just have a broken system. Whereas if you eat whole foods, they're not only pro-metabolic, so your body becomes efficient at burning them, and over time, your metabolism increases and you can eat more calories, but also they're very satiating as well. So you'll be satisfied. And to be honest, if you eat a whole food diet, from my experience, it's actually very, very difficult to overeat. You have to force feed yourself because you have natural hormones that regulate your weight. So if you're overeating and you're gaining fat, you have ghrelin and leptin that come in and essentially telling you you're fine, you're eating too much. And then, you're no longer hungry and you stop eating, right? That's how it works. Fat shouldn't be stored in such excessive levels. Obviously, a little bit's healthy. So naturally, your body self-regulates. But obviously, the processed foods come in and they undercut the system and they hijack it. And you end up overeating massively with lower quality food that destroys your metabolism. So to summarize, yes, there's calories in, calories out. But there's also foods that reduce your metabolism and foods that increase your metabolism. And there's also foods that fill you up quicker and don't fill you up quicker. So now let's get on to the macros, right? And what you have to understand is there is no such thing as a bad macro, micro, or even food group. But there is bad ingredients. Let's take, for example, a cheeseburger and chips. You might, instinctively think, oh, that's unhealthy. I disagree. Because you can have a cheeseburger that's made from, literally, the fries are just made from potatoes and olive oil and salt. And the burger is made from, good quality ground beef, salt, pepper, with some cheddar cheese on top, some good quality. Say a sourdough bun with no additives. You can have lettuce, you can have tomato. And to be honest, ketchup and mustard aren't actually that bad. They don't really have many bad additives in them. And then you can have a bit of olive oil mayonnaise and make a burger sauce. And you literally got a cheeseburger and chips that tastes absolutely delicious, but is actually a really, really healthy meal. Versus you could have fries with like 20 different ingredients in, fried in industrial seed oils, and a bun which you can scarcely even call food. You could leave it on the counter for a year and it'd be fine. Patties with several different ingredients, fake cheese, pesticide sprayed lettuce, tomatoes, and seed oil ridden mayonnaise. And all of a sudden you have this dichotomy where you have a meal which could be extremely healthy and also tastes probably better versus your kind of typical fast food alternative, which is actually really unhealthy. So do you see the nuance there? There is no such thing as a bad food group or micro and macros. There's simply bad ingredients, right? And you can do this with almost any food. Like think of the unhealthiest food I mean, you'd probably say like donuts, right? Well, donuts, I mean, I'm not going to say it's like something you should eat every single day, but fundamentally, what is it? You make a dough. I'm not actually sure what goes into the dough. I assume it's just, your flour, eggs, the butter, that sort of thing. You put that in and then you fry it in beef tallow. That's not that bad. It's quite nutritionally dense. And it's I wouldn't say it's something I'd eat every day, but it's not bad for you. Versus if you have a donut, which is just like, dozens of different additives, fried in industrial seed oils, and all of a sudden, that's a bad food. You see, you can do this with almost any food, and you don't actually have to deprive yourself of anything. You just have to be smart about it. Because as we touched upon earlier, ultra-processed food, you're never actually hungry for ultra-processed food. Now, you might be thinking, what are you talking about? No, there is a difference between hunger and craving, right? You are not, hungry for this food because of the nutrition you're going to ingest. What you actually are is craving it out of addiction. Because like I said, there's teams of psychologists, trying to engineer you into eating this thing. And fundamentally, if I was to pick up at McDonald's one day and eat it, okay, that's a bit of profit. But if I become addicted to eat it and want to eat it every day, that's like a recurring subscription fee for McDonald's, just bringing in more profit and more profit. These foods are addictive, very, very addictive. And you almost have to treat, stopping eating ultra-processed food like you would an addiction, because it's the same thing. They use the same kind of mechanisms. And then once you kind of, like I said, you eat the cheeseburger and chips, the healthy one versus the shit one, you realize how bad this is. It's just pure slop. You don't even want it. It almost disgusts you a little bit. And honestly, all you need to do is just get used to a whole food diet. And once you get used to it for even from 2 weeks, you kind of start to notice this and feel this. But I wanted to say an important nuance. Obviously, I was saying there's no bad food groups. That even goes for processed food. Processed food could be the best invention ever if it was used in the right hands. If it was only used with clean ingredients and we could just spam out, for example, olive oil mayonnaise, you're seeing loads of that now. Great. You can spam out sourdough bread. You can spam out burger patties. You can just spam out all these foods and just have them really easy, really convenient, and make healthy food really convenient. But instead, they just load it with a load of additives. So processed food in of itself isn't actually that bad. And we're seeing a lot more processed food options that are actually really good for you. And I personally eat a lot of them, but you have to learn how to read nutritional labels and so on and so forth, which we'll get into. But yeah, so even processed food itself isn't inherently bad. So now let's talk a little bit about fats. So with fats, you have three main categories. Okay, so you have polyunsaturated fatty acids, PUFAs, you have monounsaturated fatty acids, MUFAs, and you have saturated fats. Okay, and then you also have trans fats, which is sort of like a subcategory, which are trans fats are just like kind of unanimously bad. And so here's the thing, right? Within those three categories, your PUFAs are your seed oils. So these are like your soy, corn oil, rapeseed oil, canola oil, sunflower oil, soybean oil, all those sorts of oils that are, very highly processed, very cheap. Those are your seed oils. Those are bad for you, right? Then you have your monounsaturated fatty acids. You have things like olive oil and avocado oil. And then in saturated fats, you have things like coconut oils, animal fats like tallow. You have ghee, you have butter, and all the things that are supposed to give you a heart attack, right? Cod's wallet, mate. These are all in ratios, right? Even I say something saturated fat, it just means it's predominantly saturated fat. It doesn't mean it's exclusively saturated fat. So why are seed oils bad and monounsaturated and saturated fats, a lot better? Because there's many different reasons, and you can go down many different avenues, but the main one I find is because of the omega-3 to omega-6 ratio. Now, what you have to appreciate about omega-3s and omega-6s is that they work in ratios, right? This is why omega-3s are so good for you, because they balance that ratio. But studies have shown that people have 20 times the omega-6 they should. And this is bad for your metabolism, it chronically inflames you, it's terrible for your health, right? And where are they getting all these omega-6s from? Your seed oils. And then on top of that, you can look at how seed oils are actually made. Like, I encourage you to look up how they make rapeseed oil, and you will see it's revolting. They use bleach, they deodorize it, they use hexanes, they use all these things which are just disgusting and just belong nowhere near the human digestive tract. And they're very inflammatory things, so I just avoid them at all. Like, one of the major things you'll notice after cutting out seed oils is I encourage you cut out seed oils for a few months, like don't even touch them, then go out in the sun, and you will notice you sunburn dramatically less, which is crazy because the linoleic acid, which is the omega-6, actually oxidizes with the sun when you're eating like a high seed oil diet, which is what a lot of the sunburn is, which is a very interesting thing, and that's something you'll anecdotally recognize. So a good rule of thumb, generally thinking, is a fat okay or is it not okay? Think, is it easy to process? So for example, like olives, you can just squeeze and the fat comes out. An animal, you can just render the fat and the fat comes out. Same with an avocado, you just squeeze it, the fat comes out. But if you have seeds and nuts and these sorts of things, like how do you get the fat out of that? So it'd be very difficult to do. So that's going to involve a lot of processing. So that's probably not going to be good for you, right? Just a general rule of thumb. So what you want to do is predominantly monounsaturated and saturated fats for your fat source. The only one I'd probably avoid is lard. Other than that, I'd say they're all okay. Your butter, your ghee, your tallow, olive oil, avocado oil, beef dripping, literally anything like that, coconut oil, they're all okay, but I just avoid your seed oils. And of course, omega-3s are very important, so I'd say a couple times a week you just want to eat some fatty fish. Now you can eat sardines, make sure they're not stored in sunflower oil, because a lot of them are. You can eat mackerel, which is my personal favourite. If you live in the UK, Aldi does great cheap mackerel, it tastes good, and it fucking has a ridiculous amount of omega-3s in. Salmon is good. Just make sure whenever you're getting fish, it's just wild caught. Because factory farm fish is grim, mate. It's absolutely grim. You can look at the conditions they're in, and it's way more toxins and just terrible for you. So I try to eat oily fish twice a week as well, because that just helps balance that omega-3 to omega-6 ratio. And it helps a great deal with inflammation and your brain, and it has many different benefits. And yeah, I also said I'd avoid lard. Unless it's like very high quality, I'd also probably avoid chicken fat as well. Because as we get into when we talk about protein, there's such a thing as ruminant and monogastric animals. So monogastric animals with just one stomach, for example, humans, chickens, pigs. Please don't eat humans though. And ruminant animals with multiple stomachs, which are essentially grazing animals, like your cows, your sheep, goats, so on and so forth. They're better because animals store toxins in their fat, and animals like cows, goats, sheep, etc., they have a very complex digestive tract, which stops most of the toxins from even going into their fat, and they're broken down before that. Most is like pigs and chickens, where where the toxins will be a lot more present in the fat. I'd stick with more cows or lamb or goats. Now we have carbs. Now what you have to understand with carbs is that you have high glycemic carbs and low glycemic carbs. Now high glycemic carbs are things that are going to, spike your blood sugar. They're going to digest very, very quickly. Your white rice, your potatoes, your sugar, white bread, all this sorts of thing. That's your high glycemic carbs. And you also have low glycemic carbs, things like oats, like most fruits. You have sweet potatoes, legumes, grains. All of these are going to be a bit slower digesting and typically higher fiber. Now, obviously, a lot of people might look at one of these categories, like for example, high glycemic, and think, oh no, that's terrible for you, bad for you, it's going to give you diabetes or whatever. Fool's errand. Like I said, there's no such thing as a bad food group. They're just different how they just have different utilities. For example, I'd say lower glycemic foods, I'd say they're more of a stable fuel source. Like they're the fuel you'll fill your car up with. But the high glycemic carbs, they're more like an anhydrous rocket boost. A big button you press and you go, they're like rocket fuel. Low glycemic is good for your gut. There's a lot of fiber in there. High glycemic is great before training. Neither is bad. You just have to use them properly. Because these are all in ratios, right? Even I say something's saturated fat, it just means it's predominantly saturated fat. It doesn't mean it's exclusively saturated fat. But of course, like I said, there isn't bad foods, but there is bad ingredients. So you can have carbs, for example, potatoes. Well, potatoes are a fantastic food, like loads of nutrition. You've got vitamin C in there, you've got potassium, fantastic food. But then, like I said, you can have McDonald's fries, not a fantastic food because of all the ingredients they add to them. But you can make chips yourself super easy. Just cut them into chip shape. You can give them a little parboil if you want, or you can just put them straight in the air fryer, coat in a bit of olive oil and salt. Taste absolutely delicious, nutritionally dense, and it's a fantastic food. But like I said, obviously if you have fries with a bunch of additives, that's not going to be good for you. So carbs kind of get this bad rap, and especially a big one is bread. There is so much terrible bread. I don't even want to call it bread, because in days of old, bread was like the ultimate sustenance. I mean, even look like biblically speaking, like bread of life. They all ate bread, they all shared bread, they all broke bread. And if you look at, say, nights, as we'll get into about what the kind of nightly diet was, they did have bread like with literally every meal, because bread used to be like a nutritional superfood. But now it's been corrupted and destroyed, and now it's something that really is like probably best avoided, unless you know what to look for. Like, for example, you can have your store-bought bread, which can literally last like a year, which has like 20 different ingredients, and it's just, it's disgusting. Or you can have freshly baked bread from like diverse wheat grains that are like stone ground and it's non-fortified, and then it's sourdough, and that is a superfood with loads of nutrients versus your crap on the supermarket shelf. Because the bread making process has been very much destroyed, and the nutrition along with it, unfortunately. But if you know what you're looking for, bread's a great option. But if you don't, then bread is a terrible option and best avoided. So this is why people will cut out carbs and be like, oh, yippee. The problem wasn't the carbs, it was the quality of carbs. And also, on the topic of cutting out carbs, like the reason why this works is because fundamentally, one carb holds 3 to 4 grams of water. So if you cut out carbs, guess what happens? You'll lose all the water on your body, and you'll automatically look a lot more lean, right? But you haven't actually lost any fat, you've just lost water. And then people will say, like, oh, ketones, like, there's some godsend. Ultimately, if ketones were the best choice, they wouldn't be the backup system, would they? Simple, right? Carbs are fantastic for you. You just have to learn to leverage them. And if you don't tolerate them well, obviously there might be an element anthropologically, maybe you might just do better on lower carb. Or it's a more likely a case is that you have an issue with your body that you need to address first, and then you can tolerate them better. Honestly, like carbs make you powerful. And speaking of what makes you powerful, this is going to ruffle a few feathers, right? But I've been running an experiment recently where, because obviously we've always thought like sugar is a big, terrible thing. You should always avoid it. And honestly, for a while, I thought the same thing. But then, I decided to shed that belief, and I said, what if I actually just try it and have loads of sugar? So that's kind of what I've been doing, right? I've just absolutely been spamming sugar. I'll have loads and loads of table sugar, and I tell you, I've never had more energy. I feel so strong. It's such a hack. Even just like, obviously fruit is going to be better, honey is going to be better. Like I even saw some studies back in the day where they estimated hunter-gatherers' diets literally comprised of almost 50% honey. Like when they're out on hunts and stuff, they've literally just been consuming loads of honey because it just gives you that great energy source. It's so energetically dense. That's why we love sugar so much naturally, because it's a great fucking energy source. Bears won't even eat meat. They'll just eat berries if they can. because sugar is a great energy source, very pro-metabolic as well if you don't have loads of additives with it. But like I said, sugar especially is that rocket fuel. It is that nitrous boost in your car. And if you just have loads of sugar and just sit there and do nothing, your body's going to be like, what the fuck, mate? But if you do it and you just go and fucking grapple someone or do some striking or go lift weights, mate, it's fantastic, and your performance will go through the roof. And then it kind of makes you think, like, oh, why was there such big propaganda against sugar? And it makes you think, because obviously these people aren't like benevolent in their intentions, are they? And I'm not gonna lie, I haven't looked loads into studies and stuff, but I can just say anecdotally what feels good for me. And I'm saying try it, mate, and put some sugar in that coffee, load it up, mate, and see how you feel. I guarantee you'll feel fucking amazing. And again, like, if you're struggling with sugar, the problem is probably the terrain upon which it's coming in. It's probably not the sugar itself. If you can't process sugar, you've probably got something wrong with you internally, which you want to look at, some ailment of some sort.
Apologies, gentlemen. I ran out of time. I had to go to work and bang out a shift, but I'm back now. Honestly, the life of a wagey. But where were we? Protein. Now, this is an important one, right? I know everyone's going to say, like, well, hit a gram per pound of body weight and you're good. Just eat your chicken breast and you're fine. But I'm here to say that's not enough, because what you actually need is a complete amino acid profile. No, that sounds complicated. All it comes down to is this. You don't just want to eat your lean cuts of meat, your muscle meat. You also need to get that cartilage, those collagen-rich cuts of meat. So we're talking like your stewing steak, your slow cooker meals. I know they're a bit annoying. I know some people are just like, for fuck's sake, you know, your dad's got the slow cooker out, not again. But honestly, really good for you. Ground beef. I honestly think ground beef is probably the best food. If you get good quality ground beef, it's so good because it's cheap, tastes delicious, nutritious, has, you know, your collagen in, your gelatin in, fantastic. That's another thing as well. I'd honestly just recommend buying a tub of gelatin, beef gelatin, and just adding it to a bunch of different things. You can put it in hot drinks. You can even make jelly from it if you just make it with fruit juice, honey, and a couple other bits. You can make delicious jelly, which is really good for you, gut healing, and mate, it's just worth doing. I always put in my ground beef as well for just a bit of extra gelatin. So you need the complete amino acid profile. So muscle meat is great, it's fantastic, but it's not enough. You need your stews. Bone broth is another great source of it, because fundamentally, like, you see guys who are training really hard and then they'll go and get injured. Then you ask them, like, what do you eat? Well, I eat chicken breast and, you know, steak or whatever. But where's the collagen? Where are you getting the collagen from? Protein is a building block, but in our body, we don't just build muscle, right? We need skin, we need cartilage, we need joints, you know, we need sinew. We need all these different things which are essential for our function and our performance. And obviously hair, teeth, nails, etc. You need all of that, and for that you need the other amino acids, which aren't as pretty, but your collagen, your gelatin, your glycine, all of these, right? So, like I said, bone broth, stews as well. That is a very nightly dish. I'm actually going to get into nightly nutrition in a second, but they were very big on stews, right? You get a very tough bit of animal, which, you know, if you just cook as a steak would taste shit because it's too chewy. You put it in a slow cooker or something and it all breaks down. All that sinew and cartilage just breaks down and it just melts and it becomes really tender. And also within like the stock, you get all this amino acids which you need and are really healthy for you. So that's just one thing I'd say, just mix it up a little bit. Don't just eat your animal meat, your muscle meats rather, but also get your ground beef in, get your stews in, get your bone broth in, get your gelatin in, whatever it is. That is an essential component which a lot of people miss out on. And another thing is as well, you might be thinking, well, meat's great, but what meat? Okay, first and foremost, animal welfare is very important. As we discussed previously, it's going to be more important for monogastric animals. So your chicken and your pigs and your turkeys, that sort of thing. It's going to be a lot more important to get high quality because the toxins they eat, and let's face it, they're going to get a lot of toxins, they're going to go straight to the fat. With beefs, like I said, it's not as important, still important. Like, you want to buy local, you want to try and support farms around you. But yeah, it's not as important because not as much toxin is going to be stored in the fat. But generally, if you want to be safe with it, like me, like I'm not made of money at all. I can't even afford to buy from farmers and stuff. I have to buy from Aldi, so I'm have to buy my ground beef there. But also, when it comes to like things, I don't really eat pork, to be honest. But when it comes to things like chicken, I'll just go lean. If in doubt, just go lean, because the toxins stored in the fat, there's not much that's stored in the muscle meat. So if you're just getting like chicken thigh fillets or chicken breast, you're usually okay, to be honest. Yeah, and I know a lot of people are going to be like, oh, red meat, oh, that's bad, whatever. The thing is, I don't want to say they're complete bullshit, because I think there is a spiritual element to it, which I'll talk about in a second, which, I mean, I agree, like eating loads and loads and loads of red meat maybe isn't the best thing in the world, but you have to look at like things objectively. it is very high in nutrition. Like it is jam packed full of it, and like I said, it has the collagen, it has the gelatin. Beef makes you powerful. Red meat makes you powerful. That much is undeniable. Whether there is some spiritual implications, I think there is, but also like it makes you powerful. I definitely recommend eating it. And also another thing is cured meats, right? Back in the day, cured meats would have been like a staple in the diet of a knight, because we used to have these intricate tactics for preserving meat. Because if you kill an animal in the wild, it's like a ticking time clock, right? As soon as that animal's dead, it starts to decompose, and you have like hours in some cases if the heat's there. So we've had to develop these intricate techniques in order to preserve that animal. You cure it, you'd cover it in salt to draw out all the moisture, you'd smoke it, you'd essentially, well, the goal would be to remove as much moisture as possible and essentially make that animal inhospitable to bacteria, right? Make it completely dry. And then, like, literally back in the day, you would make, say, a cut of a pig, or, a pork loin or whatever. That would literally last years. No chemicals, no anything, purely because they were so good with these techniques, which we've lost in the modern day. And the reason we've lost them is because it's expensive. It takes time. And, people and factories found out, essentially, what you can do is, instead of just, doing this complex, long, drawn-out technique, you can pump it through of water and like double the weight and sell it and make loads more profit, and you can just whack loads of chemicals in it so bacteria don't want to eat it anyway. Genius, right? Well, it's not genius for you who has to eat the food. It's genius for their pockets. So cured meat generally is very difficult to get, like the traditionally made cured meats that we would have made in like medieval times, which is very sad, to be honest. Like, even just getting bacon without adding nitrates is very difficult, which is like it's like a carcinogenic additive, which is very prevalent in cured meats. It's very difficult. Like, you can get in a few places, like Lidl has some really good chorizo, for example. It's called like Rioja something. I'll put a photo on screen. That's really good, because that's literally just pork, paprika, salt, garlic. That's it. But yeah, fundamentally, I'd probably just give it a miss as well. And also, I think there is spiritual implications with eating pork as well, which I'll get into in a second. I mean, I will eat it occasionally, but it's never a staple in my diet. And that's another thing as well. Like, what about nuts and seeds? Now, I will admit, I've never liked them that much. So I've never done loads of research into them. But from what I do know, they're hard to digest. A lot of them have a poor fatty acid profile, so you're going to get a lot of polyunsaturated fatty acids in them. And it's kind of just not worth it. I mean, if you did want to eat them, I'd say things like Brazil nuts are great because you have selenium in them, which is a trace mineral, which is very good for you. You have macadamia nuts are good as well because they have quite a good fatty acid profile, very low PUFA, polyunsaturated fatty acids. But other than that, you can do your own research and also be careful of additives. You might think, oh, it's just peanuts. No, there's definitely sunflower oil in there as well. They will always sneak it in. So do your own research. If you feel great and you eat them, have at it, But yeah, for me, I think it's just best avoided, really. And also with fish, as I mentioned, you want wild caught, you don't want factory farm. Just make sure the quality is very good. And even so, I wouldn't eat seafood too regularly just because of how polluted the oceans are. And like, the thing is, if you're a fish, you're quite literally just swimming in it at all times. It's going through your body like constantly. So there's not much you can do to avoid it. So yeah, I wouldn't eat fish too frequently, just enough to get that omega-3 boost. Unless you can like really guarantee the source is fantastic, I just stick to it about twice a week, I think. And of course, God's gift to the vegetarian, dairy. Now, dairy is fantastic. I'm a big dairy fan, especially if you're bulking. But the thing is, I'm not actually against like low-fat dairy. I think it's a great option. There's no additives most of the time. Obviously, it depends on if it's just cheese or milk. They've just taken the fat out. You have to appreciate the nutrients are stored in the fat. Like your vitamin A, your D, your K, those are all fat-soluble vitamins, so they are going to be stored in the fat. So if you do cut the fat out, you're going to lose some nutrients as well. But yeah, I think dairy is a great option. Milk's fantastic. Cheese is fantastic. Raw is better. Okay, but that doesn't mean pasteurised is crap. I know you've probably seen online how Lord Jacob Rothschild went into the UK Parliament, and he said two things. One was to decree the state of Israel, and the other one is to enforce the pasteurisation of milk. And yeah, it's not entirely a bad thing though. Like, raw milk is better. You're going to have more enzymes in there, better nutrients. And you can have some probiotics in there, and it's going to be better for you. And I think the risk is very minimal, to be honest. Like, if you speak to any milk farmers, like I live in an area with a lot of farmers, whenever I ask them, what do you drink, by the way, it's always raw milk. And all they've ever drinking is raw milk. So I'd recommend getting a raw cheese, raw butter. It's great for you, honestly. But there's nothing wrong with the pasteurised option if it's from a good quality source. Unfortunately, in the EU, they have been trying to implement Bova, which is basically something that basically stops the cows from farting as much. Because it's going to stop global warming, and it's, cows have been dropping dead in Denmark and stuff, and that's going to produce compromised milk. I think there is a few brands who do it. I think generally the whole thing's been cancelled from what I've heard. You might have to do a bit of research on that yourself. So maybe do a bit of research, check the provider of the milk and see do they use Bova or not. But I think it's just crazy because me after a big meal, like a bulking Caesar mayo, I fart a lot. Like, mate, are they going to start feeding it to me as well? I don't know. Yeah, dairy's fantastic. And also one thing, if you're lactose intolerant, people just become lactose intolerant overnight and think, oh yeah, it just is, right? I'll tell you what it actually is. A friend of mine did a podcast and he cited a study actually that I think he said something around, right, okay, this is ballpark, this is off the top of my head, 60% of people with lactose intolerance had a deficiency in bifidobacterium, which is a beneficial bacteria in your gut. So I honestly think most of the time, if you stopped being able to tolerate milk or dairy, you have a gut microbiome issue which you need to solve, and we'll get into stuff you can do about that for a second. So if you can't tolerate dairy, it's probably something wrong with your gut, right? Even if it's something minor, you need to repopulate it a little bit. I'll get into how you can do that. And I think dairy is a fantastic tool. I think it's something God gave to us, to be honest, because, like I said, I think there is spiritual implications to eating meat. And I think it gives us the option to be vegetarian. Like, I could be vegetarian, I could still be big, I could still be strong, because dairy is a fantastic source of protein, of fats, of carbs, and nutrients. And it's fantastic. I'd love a bit of dairy. Do love a bit of milk. Now, I feel like I'm milking a bit now, so I'll move on. Anyway, fruit and veg. It's pretty simple, to be honest. Eat what you like and what feels good. Pretty simple, right? Don't need to overcomplicate it. Yeah, but generally with fruit and veg, I think eat as much fruit as you want, but also variety is key, because you want your gut microbiome as diverse as possible, right? And your gut microbiome essentially adapts to what you eat. So if you eat a very small group of foods, then it's just going to narrow down into these specific bacteria which it needs to break down the foods in which you eat. But if you eat this huge diverse range of food, then it's going to be great. It's going to keep all those different beneficial bacteria. You have that diversity in your microbiome, and a diverse gut microbiome is a huge predictor in lifespan and reduced chronic illness, so on and so forth. It's fantastic for you. I mean, a couple of things about vegetables. Obviously, because of the intensive farming and the poor soil, we don't have as much micronutrients as we used to with veg. So that's just something you want to keep an eye out for. I will go into how you can track your food and micronutrients, and maybe if you're a little bit short, you can add a bit of supplementation in. But I think it's not that hard to hit all your nutrients if you kind of do it for a little while. What I recommend tracking with is Chronometer, an app called Chronometer, Chronometer. Fantastic app. And with that, basically, you're just tracking your normal food. It even has like an AI function if you want, where you can just take a photo of your food if you like, because that's easier. And it tracks all the nutrients in your food and gives you like the daily targets which you should be hitting. And you can kind of see, or is there any deficiencies here? Am I missing out on anything? This, because no one wants to have to like remember all, the entire alphabet of vitamins and all the trace minerals and so on and so forth. No one wants to memorize all of that and track all of that. The app does it for you. It's a great app. I recommend Chronometer. And also, it's important to wash your veg, just because of like the crap that's in the veg. Ideally, wash it with a bit of baking soda and water and salt, or salted water, because that's going to, and give it a little scrub, that's going to get most of it off. Got to be honest, a lot of the time I don't do it. Probably should do it, but I'm a bit lazy, a bit short for time sometimes. But in an ideal world, that's what you should do. Also, in an ideal world, something I don't do, but I'm going to say because it's good, is just eat seasonally. You got to think, like, your body, if it eats a banana and it's in the dead of winter, it's like, what the fuck? It's meant to be a summer food. Back in the day, we would have only eaten foods when they're available, right? So if you're eating a lot of like summer fruits in winter, your body's going to be like, what the fuck? But I also got to say, I don't do that. I do eat bananas and stuff. But if you really did want to bring that extra level of optimization in, eating seasonal local foods is fantastic. And on the topic of micronutrients, here's a couple tools you can use which are extremely micronutrient dense. So first and foremost, you have liver. I'm not the biggest fan of liver, I will say, but it does have a shit ton of nutrients in. I think purely just because of the taste. I think it's a bit of a chore to eat, and I don't like the kind of overhanging cloud of like, oh fuck, I've got to eat liver tomorrow, and it just fucking annoys me a bit. So I just don't bother because I get enough nutrients from my food anyway. In an ideal world, I would eat a bit. But yeah, I'm not a massive fan, just mainly for the taste sort of thing. I mean, you can cook up with bacon and onions and it tastes fantastic, but you could probably cook up testicles with fucking bacon and onions and it would taste great. So yeah, I mean, liver's great if you want to use that. Just don't overeat it because it has very high vitamin A in it. And that can potentially be dangerous if you're eating that every single day. Another great one is oysters. Oysters are very high in zinc and B12, which is quite a difficult mineral to get. So honestly, I remember I ate fresh oysters once in France, and I was like, it's one of the only foods where I literally felt after, like, oh my God, I feel amazing because of just how nutrient dense it is. And oysters are great if you can get them. Obviously, quality is going to be a bit iffy, so try and get good quality ones as well if you do eat them. Again, we spoke about oily fish, your general fatty fish, fantastic for you. Like I said, twice a week is a good range, I think. Again, full fat dairy, you're going to get loads of vitamins, loads of minerals, fantastic for you. Fatty red meat, again, because I forgot to reiterate before, but yeah, a lot of the minerals and nutrients are stored in the fat. So if you go for leaner cuts of meat, you're not going to get as many minerals and nutrients. So fatty red meat, like a big ribeye steak or ground beef or whatever, that's going to be very, very nutritionally dense. I would say if you're eating 20% fat mince, I think you're going a bit overboard with the fat. But I would recommend buying it. What I do is I'll just drain it out and I just have a jar of it. And soon, I've been saving up. I'm going to make a candle of it soon. So one of these episodes soon, I'll have a beef dripping candle, which I'm very excited about. So yes, make sure to save the fat because you can use it for cooking. You can use it to make candles. You can use it for all sorts. So I'd recommend just buying the high fat and then just saving off some of the fat and saving it for other purposes. And especially someone who's had bile issues, choline is very, very important. And also they have cholesterol in. Now, a lot of people will be like, oh, cholesterol, because there's been this massive propaganda campaign against cholesterol. But the thing is, right, what is your brain's favourite thing ever is literally cholesterol. Like, your body's made of saturated fat. You're trying to tell me saturated fat and cholesterol is bad for you? No, it's simply not true. And again, I don't think you should drink saturated fat, which I actually used to do when I was a carnivore. Like, all that beef fat, I generally drink it. I don't think you should do that. Don't be an idiot. Don't eat raw straight butter. But at the same time, like, a bit of fat is fine. It's good for you. You need it. Like, you are made of it. Like, how do people believe that, oh no, this hexane deodorized bleached seed oil is fantastic for you, but that thing you're made of, no mate, heart attack. Yeah, it's really silly when you put it like that, isn't it? And of course, like, berries are fantastic. Obviously, there is a bit of a pesticide issue, so please wash them. Don't be an idiot like me. Actually, I will wash berries, to be fair. I'll always wash berries. But yeah, fruit as well is fantastic. You know, fucking fruit's goated, honestly. Except for the forbidden fruit. Never take a bite from that. That's not funny. Potatoes, fantastic. Mate, potatoes are so good. They take... I mean, admittedly, I'm half Irish. I'm a little bit biased here, right? But... mate, they are so good. They're nutrient dense, vitamin C, potassium, so good, and they taste amazing, mate. Honestly, I think homemade like air fryer chips with olive oil or tallow or avocado oil should be a staple in your diet. That's so nutritionally dense and so delicious. Honestly, oh mate, they're fantastic. Eat potatoes. Eat potatoes. That was so enthusiastic. And I also wanted to touch upon hydration as well. What you have to appreciate is hydration is a double-pronged system. It's a dichotomy within the body, right? And there is two factors. You might just say, oh, drink water. You get one of like your big tankers which say, oh yeah, drink this much by 10 p.m. Fantastic. Oh, 8 p.m. You go, girl. Mate, they're so cringy. But it's not just about water. Okay, and also with water, you want to be having a tap filter. Tap water's crap. Ideally, spring water, fill up from a local spring. Second to that, get a tap water. So in terms of filters, how I'd rank them is your best kind of tier is if you were to get like a 2 grand filter, but I'm going to assume you probably can't get that. Next best is probably like a reverse osmosis filter, and then you add in some trace mineral drops after that, which you can get for a few £100. You can install it under your sink. And then the next best from that is an activated charcoal tap filter, which you can install. I've got one over there, and that's like £30. And you can install that, and it's a really easy installation. I say that I've actually flooded this house with it before, but I'm an idiot. The second one I didn't. That's most important. It's an easy installation, and that's something I recommend because drinking straight tap water, mate, not the one. Not the one at all. And try and get like a glass bottle or a stainless steel bottle you can drink from. But also, it's a dichotomy. It's not just a case of the fluid. You also need the electrolytes. See, your body works in ratios, right? This is why, like, if you eat loads and loads of salt, you'll get really, really thirsty because you have loads of electrolytes, sodium in your body, and your body needs to balance that with loads more fluid, right? Because it's a ratio. Do you understand? So, what I'd recommend doing, and this is such a big hack, like, fantastic. Buy a bag of unflavoured electrolyte powder and add it to everything. You can even use it for salt to salt your food. And you literally, instead of just getting salt, you're getting magnesium, you're getting potassium. It's fantastic. And I think there's a couple others which I forget, which is eluding my mind right now. It's so good. And honestly, do you want to know an even bigger hack? And you're going to call me a weirdo for this, but don't knock it till you try it. So you have coffee, you have milk in there, you have your honey, your sugar, whatever. Add a bit of salt to it or electrolyte powder. It balances the flavour profile and it tastes so good. I can't even just have a sweet coffee now. I need some like salt in it. I would actually just put salt in my coffee. People are like, what are you doing? It's like, try it, mate. It tastes like salted caramel. It's delicious. I put it in all my hot drinks. I have ginger tea a lot. Put it in that as well. Honestly, it's such a fantastic hack. Buy a bag of electrolyte powder, so cheap, and you can whack it in everything and just have an instant boost in all your minerals. And honestly, minerals are just like so life-sustaining. They're really, really important. You want them topped up as possible. And the modern day just drains your minerals so much. And like I said, we have depleted veg. When you don't get it as much from food sources, you do need to supplement the old thing. And that's an example I think would be a very high ROI investment. And then also milk as well is fantastic. You notice all of nature's drinks like milk and fruit juice, etc. They all have built-in electrolytes within them, which is fantastic. Milk is great to drink. Get that down your son. And fruit juice is also great. Try and get freshly squeezed if possible. The better quality, the better it's going to be. And it tastes delicious as well. And here's a controversial one, right? Arrest me, take me away. I love full fat Coke. I think it's great for you. It's like rocket fuel, mate. Caffeine and sugar in one. And the additives aren't even that bad. Like, there's no dodgy sweeteners. I'm not a fan of sweeteners personally. Like, I'll happily have a bit of sugar now and again. I won't really do sweeteners. I think they disrupt your gut microbiome a lot. And I think it's just undercutting nature. I think when you understand the laws of the game, like something like that is going to come with repercussions, right? In my opinion, I just steer clear of them. So full fat Coke, mate, rocket fuel, have it now and again. I think it's fine. In my opinion, shoot me. You might still hate sugar, and that's your choice. But that's your realm, mate. That's all I'm saying. Another great soft drink is Appletiser. I know you get it here in the UK. I don't know if you get it in other places, but it's literally just fizzy apple juice, and it's delicious, mate. It is the best soft drink. I love that. Oh, mate, it's fantastic. And also, what I would say is, you want to try not to drink much around meals, because when you drink around meals too much, you dilute your stomach acid and it becomes a lot harder to digest meals. Your food isn't going to get broken down as much in your stomach, and then it'll go into your small intestine, and your small intestine will have a harder job, and food just won't digest as well, especially really cold drinks. I'm not going to say I always keep to this, I don't, but generally speaking, I would avoid that, especially at your really cold drinks. I try not to eat much around a meal. I'd say have no more than like a half pint, right? The half pint max is what you can have. If you say have a ginger tea or something, that's very pro-digestion, so I don't think that's too bad. So generally before, during, or the short period after, like half an hour after, I'd avoid drinking too much around meals. And here's quite a controversial one, and I think if I heard myself saying this a year ago, I'd be like, you are gay, mate. But honestly, let me cook, right? So veganism and vegetarianism, I used to think you morons, right, you absolute idiots, but now kind of, you know, as I learn more, I kind of realise, like, I understand it more, because I disagree with, like, the hardcore vegans just as much as I do the hardcore carnivores. I really can't stand, like, people who eat loads of meat and just not care about it as well. And they'll just be like, oh, yeah, just take it for granted. Like, an animal has died for you to eat that. If you're not using that nutrients, like, wisely to honour that animal, and I think you should be very grateful for it as well. Like, I always like to pray before my meals and generally like thank the animal for its sacrifice, because yeah, it is the greatest sacrifice it can give, and it's a living being, you know, which feels things, you know, that has sacrificed its life for you to sustain yourself, and I think that's something that you should really be grateful for. And this is like kind of having that moral turning point. I've kind of looked at vegans and vegetarians in a different light. And then I was looking into the Templars and kind of how they were eating. And I came across this quote, which is really interesting. And they said, "It should be sufficient for you to eat meat 3 times a week, for it is understood that the custom of eating flesh corrupts the body." Very interesting quote. Very interesting quote. And they themselves fasted on several days. I believe they didn't eat meat on Fridays. And I found it really interesting because, like, kind of I had a spiritual perspective, and it's something that they shared, which they were highly spiritual knights themselves. And I think it is something that it's a necessary evil, I think, to eat meat. Because you are taking from another life force, but again, I think the nutrients, the power it gives you, and I think I did hear a spiritual teacher, Neo Spirituality on Twitter, some of you gentlemen might know him, and he was saying, like, if you really want, a bout of, like, purity to achieve, I think he was talking about achieving, like, a Christ-like consciousness. He was saying that you should go through a period of vegetarianism and refrain from eating meat. And I think I will try it at some point. And this is why dairy is such a gift from God, because you can get virtually, like, most of the nutrients you would from eating meat by eating dairy, and no animal has to die for that. So I think it's it's definitely something I'm a lot more open to than I used to. I think from a nutritional perspective, I think veganism, you're going to struggle a lot. I think it is going to be very difficult, because I just don't think your legumes are going to give you, like, the amino acid profile that you would get from meat. I don't think it's really sufficient, to be honest. And then it's difficult because, I don't know, there might be, like, some sea kelp collagen or something you can get. I don't know, but I know collagen, most supplements would be from meat as well, so you couldn't really have that. So I think that would be difficult, right? I haven't done loads of research into it. Vegetarianism, you could do 100%. You just add dairy. And you could have loads of good food there. You can have your butter, you can have your eggs, and obviously you can have loads of fruit and vegetables. You can have your sourdough bread, you can have your potatoes. Big fan of potatoes, as you boys know. And you can have a really healthy lifestyle through that. And I think definitely in my later years, that's something I will go to more. But I think veganism, you're going to struggle because you don't have the eggs, you don't have the dairy. But yeah, I respect your decision. I do respect your decision. I mean, what I would say is maybe just, like, rear them yourselves, like, get some chickens yourselves and really look after them. So these eggs are probably going to go to waste if I don't eat them. I've looked after these chickens, and, there's, like, a guarantee of source. Or just buy from a really high quality welfare and just eat less of it, and that's also fine. I also think, like, I used to be someone who used to eat, like, a kilogram of meat a day. I used to eat ridiculous amounts of meat, because I thought more meat. But you actually don't need that much. Like, I used to have, like, a 500-gram pack of mince every meal, because I thought just the more the better. But you don't need that much; it's overkill. So I would try and consciously eat a bit less meat if you can, just because, like, the less animals dead, the better. You know what I mean? And I think you just don't need as much. You're just kind of eating it for no point. And like the Templar said, it does corrupt the body. It also, is extremely androgenic for the body and anabolic for the body, which they kind of missed out on. Well, I'm sure they got because they were still eating it. But yeah, it's just food for thought. This is just simply food for thought. So just be a bit more mindful of eating meat and a bit more grateful. And I've alluded to this before, but gut health is so important. As someone who's struggled with this for years, you don't know how much your gut influences your day-to-day life. Like, honestly, I've had days where I've woken up and I felt 3 times heavier. I genuinely can't think, I can't socialise, I can't function. I'm so anxious, I'm depressed, I have mood swings. The foundation of your health is from the gut. The foundation of the foundation of the foundation. All health comes from the gut. That is a true statement, right? Your gut is so, so, so important. I mean, your brain is ancient, right? But do you want to know what predates the brain? The gut. Do you want to know what predates the gut? The bacteria within the gut. And I think it's something around... top of my head, I think it's 10 pounds. You have 10 pounds of bacteria in your body. I think it's around 4 to 5 kilograms of bacteria within your gut. And that is a crazy statistic. It might be around 2 kilograms. It's either 2 or 5 kilograms. It's one of the two. And that is a crazy statistic. Your gut, all health comes from it. Honestly, this is so, so important. So how do you look after this? How do you look after your gut? Now, I will do a whole podcast on this once I manage to fix my gut, because I have a great deal of knowledge about this topic, but I'm not going to speak about something if I've not actually solved it myself. That's purely hypocritical. I think that's quite dishonourable. So, as we kind of alluded to, I think it's important to eat in a relaxed state. If you're sitting there and you've got this big meal and you're watching, Ilya Taporin knock the fuck out of someone on this screen, that's going to put you in quite an agitated state. That's going to be very stressful. You don't want to be in a stressful state when you're eating, okay? Because you have to understand, with your vagal tone, you're either in a sympathetic vagal tone, which is like fight and flight, so you're stressed, you're thinking, what's this? Or you're in rest and digest. There's not an intermediary. You're either resting, digesting, and chill, and you're like, having a good time, or you're fight or flight. And many of us in the modern day are just wired into that fight or flight, and we have chronic stress, and it wears us down so much. And when you try and eat in that state, you just cannot digest food. It's so difficult because your body's thinking there's going to be a threat there, and digestion is a very taxing activity. So it's very difficult to, put all that blood supply towards your gut if you're in such a stressed state. So stop. If you really do want to watch something, I'd say read something or listen to something which is quite soothing and gentle. And I'd also say breath work before meals. Make sure you're calm, deep breaths. Like a good benchmark could just be 6 deep breaths before a meal. But what I would recommend is praying before a meal. I'd always pray over every meal, thank the animal for its sacrifice, pray that you digest it well, and give food to the hungry, and then eat. That's just what I like to do. Relaxes you, grounds you, and also be present when you're eating. Be mindful of your chewing. If you are not chewing your food, you are shooting yourself in the foot. Digestion starts in the mouth. You have enzymes that break down your food. And if you are not chewing properly, as so many of us don't, you're literally just swallowing whole bits of food, and it's so much harder for your gut to digest. You want that to be a nice mush before it goes down. Just take your time, chew your food, go down it, and let it go down and enjoy it, and you'll digest your food 10 times better. Another great little hack is going on a walk after meal. It helps with your blood glucose, it helps with your gut motility, and it's just fantastic for your digestion. That's something I recommend doing. If you can't do that, sometimes I just do some like shadow boxing in the kitchen. It's a bit autistic, but it works as well. And another fantastic hack as well to kind of enforce that parasympathetic vagal tone, that rest and digest state, is just eat with other people. Food is meant to be a communal thing. This is why when Jesus sat down, he was always sitting with people for dinner. He was always sharing food. He was always eating. Because it just puts us in such a relaxed state, and that is the natural way of things. Eating alone, it's a rare thing. You wouldn't have done it in the past. So if possible, like I live on my own, it's not always possible. When I'm at work, I obviously eat with people and stuff, and I just notice my digestion is so much better. But eat with people, laugh, relax, joke, share food, and you just eat so much better versus watching Ilia Topuria knock out Charles Oliveira on your laptop. Like it's night and day. These are little things, but I want you to tell, as someone who's like done years and years of research into gut health, these are the most important things. And I overlook these things like, oh no, my issue's too complex for that. No, that's silly. I don't need to do that. Then I started doing it. I was like, oh, I should have been. Yeah, I'm an idiot. The basics are the most important thing every time. These are the basics. Do these. And also, let's go into some things you can actually do, right? So one thing you can do is ginger tea. If you are having digestive ailments, try this out. It's fantastic. I found it to be game-changing for me. You just, very simple to make. Just get some fresh ginger. I usually buy a pack which is 125 grams from Aldi, and that'll make 2 portions. But the 2 portions are basically massive. I think if I was to estimate, I'd say they make about 2 litre portions because I just kind of prep it. So around 60 gram will get you 2 litres of ginger tea. So you just grate it. You can keep the skin on, it's fine. Put it in a pot, boil it for around 15 minutes, and boom, you have ginger tea. I'd recommend putting some sugar and electrolytes in there, or honey and electrolytes in there. Tastes delicious. Have that after a meal, or you can have it during a meal as well, warmed up, and your digestion will improve so much. Ginger is a fantastic herb. That's some good herbal medicine for you if you're having some digestive ailments, or you just want something that tastes really good, and maybe you want to replace coffee with something else. Ginger's fantastic for you, man. It's a go-ahead substance. But yeah, that's something you can try out. Now, the thing is with digestion is you can give out these tips, but fundamentally every case is going to be different. Like, obviously, I'll say, like, fibre is great, right? Because with fibre, what it does is it feeds the bacteria in your stomach and it helps them blossom and grow. And that's fantastic, right? More beneficial bacteria. But what if you have more bad bacteria? What if you have gut dysbiosis, which is a state of disbalance where you have more bad bacteria than good bacteria, or a suboptimal ratio? You're going to feed the bad bacteria with the fibre in your stomach. Or if you have SIBO, which is small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, you have too much bacteria in your small intestine. Your gut microbiome is mainly in your colon, your large intestine. So if you get too much bacteria in your small intestine and you eat loads of fibre, it's going to just multiply loads, and you're putting fuel on fire. But generally speaking, with your average gut ailments, or you just generally want to boost gut health, fibre is a great thing. But one thing fibre does not do is it does not improve diversity that much. It just amplifies what is already there. But what does improve diversity is probiotics. Now, personally, I wouldn't really recommend like probiotics in terms of a pill form. The best form of probiotics for me are your fermented foods. And going back to medieval times, this is an ancient way of preparing food we've done for years, and all cultures have done it, from your kimchi, from your sauerkraut, to your kombucha, even to like to cheese, or yogurt. All these things are sources of probiotics, and they're all fantastic. So I would recommend just adding some probiotics in your diet, but you have to be careful, because if I was to tell you to go and buy some sauerkraut, which is fermented cabbage, you go to the shop, buy sauerkraut, great, but you might just buy it from the shelf and you think that's fantastic. No, but it blows my mind how stupid this is. But for some reason, people, like these processing companies, will buy sauerkraut and then they'll pasteurize it and then put it on the shelf. Oh yeah, go have your sauerkraut. Sorry, I need to calm down a bit. The point of sauerkraut is to get probiotic beneficial bacteria, and pasteurization is essentially a technique where you heat to a very high temperature for a few seconds to essentially nuke everything within the thing you're pasteurizing, right? Just to make it, in case there's any like bad bacteria in there. But the point of it is you want good bacteria, and you just kill all of them and then put it on a shelf. So make sure if you're buying probiotics, they are chilled. Do not buy probiotics on the shelf. Buy them from the fridge, please. Otherwise, they won't have any beneficial bacteria in them. But one thing I can recommend you doing is making your own yogurt. This is something I've done quite a lot. It's so easy to make yogurt. All you need to do to make yogurt is you get milk, you heat up the milk, you add in a yogurt starter, which you can just buy an authentic Greek yogurt from the shelf, and you can look at the bacteria in the back and think, oh, I want this bacteria. ChatGPT, what some good bacteria are. And then once you've heated up that milk to 80 degrees and you want to hold it for like 5 minutes or so, you get some of the milk and you pour it into a bowl, you mix the yogurt starter with that, and as the milk's cooling down, you put the yogurt starter back in with the milk you mixed up. Mix that around, and then you can either just leave it in a warm place for about 24 hours, or you buy a yogurt maker, which is probably the best option. They're like 20 quid on Amazon. And you buy a yogurt maker, and it just keeps it around something like 30 degrees. And then 24 hours later, you come back, and you've got this fantastic, delicious, probiotic rich Greek yogurt. And it tastes absolutely phenomenal. Do that. Super easy. Great source of probiotics, because with fibre alone, you're not going to get that microbiome diversity, but if you add in probiotics, it's a game changer as well. Things like kefir, fantastic for you. We've done it for years. Sourdough bread as well is good. Parmesan cheese, all these things are fantastic. Just get them in your diet, man. They're really, really good for you. And yeah, again, like I want to reiterate again, diversity with food. The more diversity, the more diverse you've got microbiome. So just get loads of different, like, I know eat the rainbows are fucking cliche bad thing, but it's not that bad advice in my opinion, because you are getting all that diversity with your food. As long as you feel good and react to it well, fantastic, mate. But yeah, just a little tip, like, I know I don't want to go too deep into gut health, but understand if you have a mental health ailment, it probably comes from your gut. I'm just saying it probably comes from your gut. So even if you don't necessarily have symptoms or like anything crazy, I had poor mental health for years and years and years, and I only really had like minor gut issues, but my gut progressively got worse instead of my mental health. And I was kind of like, all that time, it was, I was fighting these demons in my head thinking like that I was getting somewhere, but the fundamental issue was down here. And that is why treating the source, not the symptoms, is so important. But yeah, just a little tip, because just in case there's anyone watching this video who's struggling mentally, it's probably from your gut. Your gut jurisdicts your mental state so much, honestly. I'll give gut health its own podcast once I've healed my gut. That's going to be, I'm excited for that already. Dropped a Roman there. I'm excited for that already. That's going to be a fantastic podcast. So another thing as well is quantity, how much food you should eat. And what I recommend doing is just eating a whole foods diet, and then literally just tracking on chronometer. And after a while, don't judge yourself. Don't think, oh, I'm overeating here. Don't even give yourself a number. Just observe, like in an emotionally detached sense, and just see what am I eating day in, day out. And am I kind of staying at a healthy weight? Am I getting fatter? Am I getting thinner? And from there, you can kind of play around with it a bit. But generally speaking, if you're eating all whole foods, I think your hunger systems, your ghrelin, your leptin, everything is just managed how it should be. After a while, your body these natural programs just kick back in. and you just kind of intuitively eat. And if you wanted to get fat, you'd have to force feed yourself, because you intuitively just feel full and you don't want to eat anymore, and you don't get fat. And getting fat is just a poor system. So with quantity, I don't actually think it's that complicated at all. But one thing I would recommend is, like, if you're this deep into this podcast, I don't think this is going to be a problem for you, but I think you should learn how to read labels. I think it's very important. In the modern day, like, there is poison from every angle. And obviously you can just cut that all out and just eat the whole foods. But the thing is, processed foods aren't a bad thing, and you want to be like as minimally autistic as possible. Like, if someone cooks for you, you're not thinking ingredients label now, or I'm not eating it. You don't want to do that. So you want to be eating as broad a range of things as possible. And once you learn to read ingredients labels, you can actually find like little hidden gems. Like, you'll find some garlic bread that doesn't have any seed oils in it. It's just like butter and no bad additives or anything. And then you can find little things and realize, oh, that's actually, yes, it's a processed food, but it's actually not that bad for me because I read the ingredients label and there's nothing in there that's that bad for me. So I recommend a little autistic phase where you kind of really get interested in the stuff, and every shop you kind of like picking up things and reading the labels and everything. I really recommend doing that for a little while if you're interested in it. If not, just, you don't have to do that. It's a bit autistic, but that's just something I really like to do, and I'm really interested in this sort of thing. So, you could drop me in any shop you want. I could just happily spend an hour just going around reading ingredients labels. But I don't think everyone else is like that. But I think regardless, the ability to learn, the ability to read ingredients labels is vital in modern day, because they are trying to insidiously poison you from every angle. And one of the main methods is through the drawbridge, through your mouth, and that is with food. So, yeah, you've got to be very careful with that. And another huge factor is going to be your ability to learn how to cook. Please learn how to cook. It's so fun, it's relaxing, it's therapeutic. And I know it takes time, but the more you do it, the more you can find little loopholes, and it becomes a lot quicker. And you can meal prep. I recommend, what I do, for example, is I meal prep every Sunday. Just a big batch of like 6 meals or so, and it just saves me so much time cooking. I don't have to be cooking every day. And I would recommend meal prepping every Sunday, and just it sorts you out for the week. But just learn how to cook, because if you learn how to cook, you can make a bland food, chicken and rice, taste amazing. Just with a few seasonings, you cook the rice right, you cook the chicken right, it's moist, the rice is fluffy, you add some veg in there, and all of a sudden chicken and rice, which is a bland bodybuilder meal, becomes like highly palatable and ravishing to the tongue. So I recommend learning to cook. Have a bit of, not learning to cook, bit lower on the priority list, that one. Maybe watch cooking, whatever, man, sorry. Just learn how to cook, have a bit of fun with it in the kitchen, experiment a few things. You're going to fuck up sometimes, and a few dishes are going to go wrong. That's part of the game. But yeah, it's really fun, and I think you can get creative with it, and then it makes it a lot more fun and a lot more delicious, because you're never going to stick to eating just bland chicken and rice. I've actually done that before, just cut out all seasonings, and it's not fun, man. It's really not fun. You want to be exotic with it, and that's coming from a British person, right, who prides himself in Sunday roasts and fun Englishes. But yeah, man, make it flavoursome, make it delicious, because I think there's nothing better. You come home, you've done work for the day, you've trained hard, whack on a fucking podcast and just cook and just relax, man. Just turn your brain off, mate. It's beautiful. I absolutely love it. And by the way, boys, if something like a cookbook is something you'd be interested in, let me know. I'll be happy to oblige, you know what I mean? Or one thing I do want to do at some point is, like, I know this is only really going to be UK based only, because I've only autistically analysed UK supermarkets, but if you wanted like a hidden gems, like food cheat sheet where you could find all these different foods which actually aren't that bad for you from shops, I could happily oblige. If that's something you guys wanted as well, let me know. And another skill as well was just learning how to listen to your body. Like I said, after about 2 weeks of eating all whole foods, your ghrelin and leptin start to come back, and the addiction to processed food starts to fade. So after that sort of time, you will feel your systems come back online, and after that you kind of listen to yourself, like, am I eating enough? Do I need to eat more of this? And after that point, if you still have intense cravings or something, to me that'll be indicative of potentially like a nutrient deficiency or something, because if your body's still craving something after that point, it probably wants a nutrient that is within the food you're craving. It's like, for example, you see, pregnant mothers who would just crave the craziest of things, because they just needed that nutrient so badly, even though it's like the weirdest thing. I think I've even heard like pregnant women craving like sucking on iron or something like that, because they're deficient in iron, and it's just like crazy. But because that body's under such like vitamin demand and nutrient demand that it just has to get it any way they can. So once the kind of like you've cut out these parasitical processed foods that are sucking on your system and undercutting it, and your system starts to come back online, and your hunger responds to food how it should, you can actually listen to your body and think, oh well, I'm hungry for that tonight. It's probably because my body needs that sort of nutrients. And your body's very, very clever, you know. It's very, very clever. So give it a chance to be. And again, if you want to cheat on your diet, I think ultimately, if you want to cheat on your diet, you probably haven't got the right diet. But then let's face it, like all of us now and again mess up. Like sometimes, you know, I'm not Mr. Perfect. Sometimes I see a Five Guys, and it happens, you know, and things happen. In the toilets, no, mate, I'm just not funny today, am I? But yeah, what I'd recommend is more like smart treats. Again, like you can have a burger and stuff if you're just smart with the ingredients, or like if you want a sweet treat like something like dark chocolate, you get used to the taste, and soon you get the same dopamine from dark chocolate as you would milk chocolate. And then you taste milk chocolate, you're like, oh, this is too sweet. It just takes time to adjust. Honestly, I'd say about 2 weeks, and your taste buds are refreshed. Things like you can have like all butter shortbread. Like I have that in my packed lunch every day, and it's super cheap. You can get it from Aldi. It's literally just flour, sugar, salt, and butter. Like it's not fucking ideal, is it? But there's nothing in there that's gonna kill you. You know what I mean? Home baking as well. Like, you know, again, that's a similar thing. You're just having flour, butter, eggs, sugar. Like these things aren't that bad. You know, if you're not just eating all cake, then you know that now and again it's fine. Like if an old lady offers me cake, I say yes 100% of the time. This isn't a case of just dogmatic. Oh, nope, no seed oils, no seed oils. Like you can't live your life completely in fear of seed oils. And this is another little hack, what I recommend you do just to stay on track. So use the Notes app in your phone and create a list. What I do, because I shop in Aldi, I section it into aisles, just so when I'm going through on my weekly shop, it's a lot easier. But you can section it how you want, or you can just have one big list if you want. Have a list of all the foods you buy and have them checked. And then before you go on a shop, just think, I need this, this, and this. Uncheck that, uncheck that, uncheck that, uncheck that. And then you go to the shop and you look, okay, what do I need? Courgettes. Grab courgettes, ticket. Chicken breast, grab chicken breast, ticket. And the way my week works out is I do my shop on Saturday and then do my meal prep on Sunday. And you might think, okay, but that's all fine and dandy, Patrick, but what if there's no ingredients labels? What if I'm eating out? So what do you do when you're eating out? So first and foremost, what I do is avoid eating deep fried food, because 9.9 times out of 10 is going to be fried in seed oils that have been heated and reheated. I used to work in a kitchen, mate. It is grim. Like they will go like a week without changing the oil, and it's literally black. That is not good for you, mate. I'd avoid eating deep fried stuff if you can. If you just want a cheat meal and just want to have fun with your friends and not think about it, fair enough. Every now and again, that's fine. I like to think an 80-20 is like a good rule of thumb, where 80% is healthy food, 20% maybe off the rails. I think if you eat kind of how I've told you to eat in this, you probably won't even want that 20%. But as long as when you eat unhealthy, it is a deviation, that's okay. If it's the norm, there's a problem. But if it's a deviation from your baseline is healthy, that's all right. And so if you wanted to go for the deep fried option, yes. But if you did want to try and stay on track, you can be a knobhead and ask and just say, oh, you know what, I'm actually quite allergic to seed oils. Is there anything that doesn't have seed oils in, or is there any way you could cook this with butter or olive oil? You can do that. I've never actually done that, to be honest, but I don't think they react that badly, especially if you're eating in a posh place. I'm sure they'd happily oblige. If you're doing it in spoons, they'd probably tell you to fuck off, but that's the game, isn't it? And like I know some places, if you ask to eat, for example, the kitchen I worked in, if someone asks for gluten-free, for example, if someone asks for like gluten-free chips, the fry wouldn't be gluten-free because all manner of things have been in there, so you can get them done in the oven. So that's just one option you can do, but generally you can just go for something that's like meat and vegetables. Like mash is a good option a lot of the time. It's just butter and milk, and pasta's usually a good option, especially if it's cooked well. Like you don't have that many seed oils in pasta. You usually get some veg, you get some meat. But yeah, you can kind of use your brain a bit when you're eating out, and you can kind of see. But just avoid the deep fried stuff is what I'd say. But yeah, I know I've given you so much information in this podcast, and I'm actually going to have to do a part 2 of this podcast because there's still so much I haven't said, and I've been going for like an hour and a bit now. But be patient with yourself. You have to understand that eating healthy in the modern day is a skill. It is not a default, it is a skill you have to learn. And within that skill, there's several different subsets of skills, like reading labels, like cooking, like eating at restaurants, all right. Like all these different things, and they all can kind of conglomerate in the skill of eating healthy. But be patient with yourself. Don't self-deprecate. It's a very difficult thing, and the world is kind of set up for you to fall into this slippery slope of unhealthiness, and it's very hard to fight against the tide. But just be patient with yourself, I implore you. Like, I'm not asking you to be perfect. I'm just asking you to try. That's why, like, at the end of the podcast, all I say is just keep trying and God bless, because that's all we can do. We're all going to fail. We're all going to fall on our arse. We're all going to end up in Five Guys in the toilets. But fundamentally, if you just keep on trying, that is all that matters, and you will get where you want to go. And especially in the age of AI, research is very easy. If you just make it clear that you're not a fan of seed oils and you kind of give it a few pushes and shoves, you can get some really good information out of AI, and it's super easy. It's just in your pocket all the time, so there isn't really any excuses, and there's so many great social media pages out there. Obviously, I would avoid being overly dogmatic. It's all food for thought, but just get someone who kind of aligns with your ideology, and you can find some great information out there. But yeah, man, just consistency is everything. That's with 99% of things worth doing in life, it's all about just consistency and chipping away. And it's never a pretty answer. There's never a short, sweet answer, but it's just a long, dreary one. But the reward is the sweet bit, and that will come after the hard work. So, like I said, just get the head down and work. But yeah, I know that's a lot of information. So what I wanted to kind of do was condense it into a system for you to take actionable steps to actually get where you want to go. Because what you have to understand is that diet is a system, and a system with a desired outcome of you brimming with virility, joy, pleasure, spiritually vibrating on a high frequency, feeling strong, feeling lean, feeling mean, with an ever-enduring gas tank. Like, you're just a physical and mental force. And also, fundamentally, you want great relationship with the food, and eating delicious food, and food being a highlight of your day. Like, eating should be a pleasure. That is what you want out of this system. That is the desired outcomes. You see, when I go out and I'll go to work and I'll go out in public and I'll see what other people eat, and I'm like, well, that's pretty unhealthy. It's processed, it's got this, it's microwaved in microplastics, whatever it is. And I also remind myself, but that's the thing, they're using zero willpower there, and they're just eating what they want. But here's the thing. I look at myself and what I'm eating. I'm using zero willpower, and I'm eating what I want. But the only difference is they're unhealthy, sickly, weak, obese oftentimes. And to be quite frank with it, I'm jacked, I'm very strong, I'm healthy. And even in spite of the chronic issues I do have, I managed to maintain good energy levels. And now, of course, this isn't a case of like superiority. I don't think I'm better than them. Literally, I have a plethora of issues myself. I'm far from perfect. I'm not sitting around judging people, right? I know people have their own issues. But fundamentally, what is the difference between them and me? I decided to build my own system, and they took the one that was given to them. So now, gentlemen, it comes to the point in the podcast which is like, there's no mental masturbation, it's not always pretty, but it's about you taking action. So fundamentally, it is your move. Now, I've given you years of hard-earned knowledge on nutrition. Now it is a case of you to put it into action. Now, this little game plan I've sketched up, I will put into a free document, which you can just download, link in description. No strings attached, it's completely free, just so it's going to be a bit easy if you to digest it, no pun intended. So now what you need to do is build a game plan and act upon it, right? And now, obviously, this little game plan I have here, if you've already done any stages, for example, like you already tracked your food, you already know what you're eating, there's no point doing it again. You don't need to do it. Obviously, tailor it to your individual needs. But I wouldn't recommend overlooking anything if you haven't. So if you're someone who thinks, tracking food, I don't need to do that, that's exactly what you need to do. Trust me, like I said, with the chewing food and whatever, digesting it and being mindful and relaxed before eating, I was like, I don't need to do that. Yes, you do. It's the foundation is the most important. If you can't do that, there's no point doing anything else. Even if you do it and it's fruitless, still the right move. So first and foremost, the first step I would do, right, if I'm someone who's perhaps unhealthy, perhaps has poor eating habits, first and foremost, if you're someone listening to this podcast, mate, I want to shake your hand. No, mad respect for that. Like, honestly, deep respect for that, because the first step is literally just willingness. A, willingness to listen to a different perspective, and B, you fucking listen to autistic ramblings for like an hour and a half, mate. You're clearly into this, mate. So honestly, if you've gone this far, it's a matter of time until you are where you want to be, because you have that will, mate. So respect. But if I was someone in that position of, like I said, the people I see out in public, the first step I do is remove processed food from your house. you want to remove the steaks and replace them with ladders. So what I do is just get all the processed food and all those little garbage foods that you reach for in the back of the cupboard, go and either bin it or donate it to a food bank, right? And just get rid of it. You don't want it in your house. You don't want that temptation. Now, next thing I do was create a shopping list with all whole foods or clean ingredient foods. I'll make a list on the document of foods you can pick from if you want, and you can do that, or you can just do it yourself. It's not that difficult. Then I want you to go on your weekly shop, and I want you to add all those things which you made the list of, and just be a bit mindful. Have a look in the ingredients. Is there anything you don't recognise? Is there anything that shouldn't be there? And just put it back. Like, for example, you normally grab peanuts, right? Grab the peanuts. I guarantee you'll probably see sunflower oil in them, and you're like, why is there seed oils in that? I don't know, mate, either. But it's insidious. It's in every little thing. So you've got to be really, really careful. But yeah, that's why I want to reiterate. When you're going on the shop, like, unless it's like lettuce or something, or like chicken breast, like raw chicken breast, that is, cooked chicken breast will have additives in, just double check it. There's no harm in it. Just make sure there's no additives in it. And yeah, so I want you remove the snakes, then you add the ladders back in, and I want you to fill your cupboards with healthy food, right? Now, step 3 is I want you to cook whole food only recipes. And honestly, this really isn't hard at all. It's really not hard. You can make burgers, you can make nice pasta dishes, you can make chicken and rice, you can make chips and steak, and there's so much you can do. Get a bit creative with it. Just think that, honestly, like I said, with all foods, there is a way you can make it healthy. So literally just pick your favourite foods and just literally reverse engineer that, take out any problematic ingredients and replace them. You can use ChatGPT for that, it's fantastic. Just make loads of that, mate, and enjoy it and enjoy your food. Learn to love cooking, that is stage 3. Now the next thing I do is start tracking on Chronometer, as aforementioned. Obviously at the start I just track it and kind of gauge where you're at, and then optionally you can add a protein and a calorie target. So for protein, I'd say around 1.4 gram to 2 gram per kilo of body weight. So if you're around 90 kilo, then you at the upper end you get around 180, and at the lower end, oh, that's a big task on my maths there. Ooh, it's probably around 130 grams. Yeah, bit shaky maths there, probably a bit higher than that. But yeah, so 130 to 180 gram, somewhere around there you'd be fine. Generally, if you hit around 120 gram, you're all right. If you are obese, obviously, say if you're 400 pounds, you don't need to eat that much. Just hit at least 120 gram and you'll be all right. But yeah, just start aiming for those targets, and you notice if meat is like kind of a staple in your meals, which it should be, then you can kind of, it becomes pretty easy to hit that. If you add in some low-fat dairy, which is a protein bomb, by the way, I don't think I really iterated that enough earlier. Low-fat dairy is extremely high in protein. If you get like half-fat cheese, mate, you can whack it in anything, and it's really, really high in protein and just bumps up anything, and it's super cheap as well. And if you wanted to generate a calorie maintenance, I think you can just put your details into Chronometer, and it will give you like a very loose estimate on what your calories will be, and you can start with that. And obviously if you're too hungry, increase it. If it's too much, then decrease it. It's fine. It's just like a feedback loop. But just don't get overly obsessed with the numbers. I mean, you can also weigh yourself every day and kind of see, or every week, and kind of also weigh that up against your calories. You know, I'm losing weight. If I'm losing weight and I don't want to lose weight, up the calories. Or, you know, it's very simple, right? And the second podcast, I'll go more into the weight loss side of things and also the weight gain side of things. But it's simply too much to put into this podcast. So, yeah, but it's pretty self-explanatory, a lot of it. Just don't be too aggressive. Always with diet, except for like maybe if you wanted to like cold turkey some processed food. In terms of like calories and protein and this sort of stuff, be gentle with your changes. Be incremental. Play the long game. Don't just change things overnight, because if you make huge changes, you're going to rebound. If you try and cut 1,000 calories overnight, you're going to rebound. You're going to hate yourself. You're going to get back in you're going to go into this negative feedback loop, and it's horrible. It's not what you want at all. So, gentlemen, ladies, be gentle with it. Take care, because you know you really want a good relationship with food, and be emotionally detached with it. Don't be overly dogmatic with yourself and be too self-critical. It doesn't end well. You need to be kind to yourself. Almost be like, think of yourself as like a fatherly figure, like, you know, that voice of like God within you sort of thing, like the higher self that speaks to you. Let that guide you and be fatherly to you, because your kind of lower self is going to be like, try to hate yourself, you slip up on your diet and self-deprecate. Let that higher self voice just be fatherly and be like, oh no, it's okay, it's fine, just keep trying. You know, kind of have that inner dialogue. I find that helps quite a lot myself. But yeah, with tracking, I would say You don't have to do it forever. I'd say do it for a month or two, and then after that you can kind of intuitively learn how many calories you need to eat, because most of us eat pretty much the same foods day in, day out. So after a while you'll kind of intuitively know how much food you have to eat. Like I said, your ghrelin, leptin hormones, they'll be back online, and you would intuitively know, and you don't have to do this all the time. But to be honest, like if you eat the same meals, you can just input the meals into Chronometer and it becomes effortless. It becomes super easy and quick anyway. Or you could use the AI feature to kind of take a photo and track your food, and it's decently accurate. Just have something in the photo to kind of give it a size reference or whatever, and it's pretty good, to be fair. So yeah, that's some options for tracking your food. So yeah, kind of step 5 I already did just cover kind of in step 4, but again, it's just don't self-deprecate. You're going to fall off the bike sometimes. That is the game. Just get back on it. If there's deviation, it's fine. You just want your baseline to be healthy. Simple as. So at step 6, what you can do is kind of look at Chronometer and think, is there any micronutrients that I just, because you kind of swipe through the days, is there something that just keeps on, I'm not hitting? At that point, you can look at adding in something and making some dietary changes, or potentially, and you can just ask ChatGPT, how do I get more magnesium in my diet, right? And fundamentally, there's also things like vitamin D, which is, vitamin D is, dietary. You want to mainly get it from sunlight. It's less about getting it from your diet, right? But also, just ask ChatGPT, think, I'm missing my magnesium. How do I get more magnesium? And maybe it might be a case you have to supplement it in because it's hard to get dietarily. But yeah, just plug in those little gaps. And at this point, I'd wager you're a lot more attentive to ingredients labels, so on and so forth. So you can actually try adding in some of these like cleaner processed foods and see how you react to them. Again, just take things slowly. Try something out. If it works, great. If it doesn't, no biggie. And yeah, just you can kind of try out a few of the cleaner processed options. Obviously, I'd still stay away from those with harmful ingredients in. But if, like I said, you see some garlic bread, which has just got some butter, garlic, and like flour, water, yeast, salt, whatever, go for it. Why not? So yeah, you can try those things out as well and be a little more adventurous. So now, like, if you follow all those steps, you have a working system, you're cooking your own meals, you have a healthy shop, you know what's in your food, you know how much to eat. And at this point, you can play with little nuancy things, like you can maybe adjust, like decrease your fats, increase your carbs. You can take out some stuff from your shopping list, you can add some stuff in. There's really a plethora of things you can do here. But at this point, it's about developing your own philosophy. Like, you might listen to this podcast and back and think, you know what, I really disagree with that, and I really disagree with that. I think he was wrong about that. That's perfectly fine. You're your own person, and like I said, from an anthropological lens, everyone reacts to things differently. Okay, so fundamentally, at this point, you want to kind of realize what works for you, and you want to act upon that and really develop your philosophy in diet and nutrition. And yeah, and that's essentially, mate. One thing I really wanted to iterate actually is this skill is not just about you. Because you have to understand that if you take these diligent steps and you improve your own nutrition and your own health, people will see what you're doing and see you living by example, and they will be in awe of you, and they will naturally start to mimic you. And it's a fantastic thing. So via osmosis, you're literally making people around you healthier. And then also, if you're a younger person or you're someone who already has kids, you're literally going to make your kids healthier, because before, if say you didn't know about any of this stuff, you'd be, just feeding your kids with whatever processed crap, and the amount of suffering you cause your kids long term is catastrophic. But if you know about these things, you can give your kid like the healthiest, most solid baseline ever, and that is such a virtuous thing. And you save them so much suffering, because chronic illness is you can't put into words how painful it is and how long and drawn out and how much suffering one has from a chronic ailment. So the fact you can kind of not only like save yourself but save others as well and save future generations is a truly noble thing. So this is why, just a bit of added incentive and motivation of why you should take these steps, because without them, mate, it's not just you who's going to suffer. So it's on a little side note, my son is going to be a fucking beast. And my daughter is going to be a fantastic lady as well. A fantastic lady. So yeah, at that point, you know what's in your food. You know what labels you can read. Your shopping bills decrease. You're healthier. You're happier. You're fitter. You're stronger. You're mentally sharper. And you're just a better person, mate, to be honest. Like, if you follow these steps, you'll just be so much better. Yeah, and of course there's loads of different things. You can start bulking, you can start cutting, you start body recomp, and all those different things I will get into the next podcast, don't worry. But yeah, at this point, you have a system that functions and works. Tinker with it, right? See what works. Try out a few different things. And fundamentally, if I was to summarise this podcast in a sentence, what I would say is, Listen to your body, not the Instagram influencer. Right, boys. My camera ran out of battery. It's now like an hour past my bedtime. I've lost my voice. I've lost my head. I've lost everything. But we're going to get this done. So, where was I? So, in summary, what you need to do is eat a whole food diet with protein as a staple. Listen to your body and create a diet system that you can stick to that nourishes, fuels, satiates, and elevates you. Learn to cook, read labels, know what is actually in food, and get and stay in fantastic shape effortlessly. And also by doing this, you improve everyone else's nutrition around you and health via osmosis, and your kids, your future kids. I want you to understand that the stakes are very, very high. Actually, well, the stakes are medium rare, but I said that joke before and I had to repeat it and it just didn't hit because I had to force it. Anyway, I wanted to give you a quick day of eating example. So what you do, wake up in the morning, have some probiotic yogurt that you made and have it with some fruit, with some honey. It tastes absolutely delicious and it's nice and light. You know, it gives you a bit of nourishment, but it doesn't bog you down and keeps your brain sharp. Then later on, say I like to have the biggest meal around lunchtime. I think that's best when your digestion is primed. And say you have your cheeseburger and chips and obviously a healthy version as well. And that's a great meal, nutritious. You get it down, you're happy, you're satisfied. Then later on for dinner, you have nice rice and chicken, well cooked, well seasoned, with a nice array of vegetables. And then after that, for a little bit of pudding, you treat yourself, you have a little bit of dark chocolate. And that right there will be a fantastic day of eating, very nutritionally dense. And you're covering about every nutritional base you need there, your carbs, your fats, your protein, and also your micronutrients as well. That's a fantastic day of eating. That's just a little example of how I would eat personally. And yeah, I appreciate this is a lot of information. And one thing I wanted to do, especially for those who stayed with throughout like this hour and a half of like autistic rambling, I appreciate you a lot. A little thank you. I'm going to clear out a Saturday evening, either this week or the week after. And I'm just going to make it free, my schedule free for some 30-minute calls. So if that's something you're interested in, it's going to be completely free, no strings attached. I just want to help you build a system that's going to suit you. And we can just have a bit of a chat. If you have any questions or anything like that, I'm down to help you out, you know what I mean? No pressure. If it's something you're interested in, that's fine. If not, books any, that's also fine. I get a Saturday evening off. So, but yeah, that's just something I wanted to do as a little thank you. And then the next podcast, obviously there was so much information we couldn't all get in this podcast. We're going to discuss meal timings, the sizes, how to eat for productivity and mental output, how to eat for physical output and strength and performance, eat like an athlete, how to lose weight, bulking, body recomposition, supplements, kitchen cooking ware. I'll make a UK-based food cheat sheet, potentially a cookbook. I'll talk about alcohol and further resources and you can look into, and any questions that, anyone asks me from this podcast and anything else I think of really. So that's what I'll be for the next podcast. And yeah, very excited for that. But gentlemen, I'm knackered. But as always, what we like to do is finish with a little prayer. So if you can, just find somewhere quiet, just relax, just kind of like meditate on the words I'm saying, pray with me if you will. If you can't, just kind of think in your heart about what I'm saying. And yeah, thank you very much, gentlemen. So in the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Dear Lord, thank you for all you give for us. And thank you for the food that nourishes us. Thank you for the trees that bear fruit, the crops that yield, and the animals that give their life. God bless them, and may we use the sustenance they give us for good and to better this realm. But thank you very much, Father. We love you and appreciate you, and we're very grateful for the delicious food you give us. And may we do you proud. May we give food to the hungry and those who don't have it. And may everyone rest with a belly full of food. May no one go hungry. And may we share what we have, and may we be kind and we be generous. Thank you, Father. I love you and appreciate you. God bless the viewer that's watching. I hope if they're going through any struggles that you ease the passing and you teach them the lessons they need to learn, that we all need to learn. And I pray that they do well in whatever they're choosing to do right now. And I pray that they stay strong and stay on the path and they keep trying and they keep the faith. And God bless the Knights of the Round Table, and God bless the Round Table, and God bless the world, and help us make a candle in the dark night, a little pocket of divinely ordained good in a world of darkness. So And may we do it with a nourished, micronutrient dense, healthy belly. And of course, give us our daily bread. But Lord, if you be so kind, make sure the bread doesn't have 20 ingredients in. Thank you. I love you and appreciate you, Father. Help we live by your example. I love you, Jesus Christ. Thank you for what you do for us. And yeah, help we live to a fraction of your example, and I would be happy. Thank you very much. May we spread your message and your word, and I love you and appreciate you, Father. Thank you. Help we be the best man. Help us be the best man we possibly can be in service of this realm. Thank you. I love you and appreciate you. Archangel Michael, give us strength in battle. And God bless the Knights of the Round Table. Amen. In the Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Amen. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. God bless and keep trying.